You know I'm right. Nick Durst here with Joe Calabrese. And Joe, our guest today, I mean, there's no other way to put it, but he is the man in Canada.
Yes, he
What's
is.
up, guys? Oh man, wow.
Look at him. So, we'll give you a nice warm introduction here. He's currently the co-host of the morning show from 6 to 10's Z1035 in Toronto. He's the former host of MuchMusic and Entertainment Tonight Canada. Someone who we're really excited to have on, Rick Campanelli. And before we bring you into the conversation, for our listeners, I just kind of want to give a frame of reference here for the United States versus Canada thing. So when I was young, I used to love coming home after school and watching TRL. Used to love watching Carson Daly. So you have that video jockey kind of experience. For anybody who doesn't watch the entertainment shows, probably compare you to somebody like Mario Lopez, kind of, right? So I got all that experience doing the hosting. And
look how good this guy's hair looks if you're watching.
I know it looks awesome. And then because Nick and I are from New York City, so our popular radio station here is Z100, and then we have Elvis Duran in the morning show. So, like I said, just to give a couple of frame of reference to that,
he's Carson Daly, Mario Lopez, and Elvis Duran.
Except he's north of the border. But Rick, we're very, very happy to have you on. Rick Campanelli, welcome to the show.
Wow, guys, that is awesome. I've never been introduced quite like that before. I appreciate it. You bring back some amazing memories. Life just keeps moving on and moving forward, and we evolve and we transition from one gig to the next gig. And doing morning radio. Who would have thought back in the day, going to see rock concerts every night of the week in Toronto? Now, waking up at the same time as I was going to bed back then, getting up at 3:30 a.m. to do a morning radio show, but it's an honor. And you mentioned Elvis Duran. Elvis is on our sister station, Proud FM. Evanoff Communications owns both Z1035 and Proud FM up here in Canada. So there you go. It all comes full circle. And it's just an honor to still be doing something that I love to do after all these years. So it's good to be hanging with you guys.
Absolutely. And before we really get into the meat of things here, I have a message to pass along to you from Adnan Verk. He said, Adnan Verk, he sends his best. He says he knows you're devastated that Italy did not make the World Cup. He knows you're happy that Canada made the World Cup.
See, now that's something I'm going to cry over, Joe and Nick. Sure, the Leafs, whatever. I'm not my first go when it comes to an NHL team, but yeah, the Italian national soccer team not making the World Cup for 2 World Cups in a row. It's crazy because Canada, where we live, our guys, our soccer team has just qualified for the World Cup in Qatar, and they'll be hosting along with you guys in Mexico in 2026. So Canada has made it for the past 2 World Cups, this one, and in the future, the next one, and Italy hasn't made it in 2 World Cups. So what does that tell you about the going state of soccer these days in the world? It's unbelievable if you think about it. But
and Italy just won the Euros over the summer, so
they just won the Euros, and they couldn't qualify for the Worlds. I don't get it, guys. I don't get it.
What's the in Toronto? What's the Italian scene like up there as far as food and the culture?
Oh, are you kidding? You guys haven't been up here to Little Italy yet in Toronto? It's
never been north of the border.
Oh, really? You never been north of the border?
I have friends who have been to Toronto.
Yeah.
To sporting games and stuff like that. Visit the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I've had friends who have been to Montreal, and they've been to UFC events up there. I remember they went there for a Georges St. Pierre fight. Canadians, Rangers games up there. So, and like the party scene in Montreal and Toronto is pretty great too. But yeah, we've never been up there.
Yeah, guys, you got to get yourselves up here. We'll roll out the red carpet for you guys. It's a big sports town. Yeah. Great food, great music. Of course, all the bands stop by here on their tours. But yeah, our Italian areas, there are actually multiple. College Street is always hopping throughout the year, all 12 months, especially in the summertime when the national team is playing, and then of course on St. Clair as well. But I take my dad to go see all the games in those areas because they've got the greatest little Italian restaurants and pubs and bars, and the environment, the atmosphere. There's just something special about it. You know, I can't fly him over to Italy to watch the games. The next best thing is sure Mulberry Street's kind of cool, so I like it down there. But either St. Clair or College up in Toronto, it's there's nothing like it. So maybe when the qualifying starts happening for the next one, you guys will have to come up and we'll enjoy a game together.
I think what we could do is this October, Joe come up to Toronto to the Rogers Center to watch his Yankees lose to the Toronto Blue Jays.
Well, there's a possibility that we might have a Toronto Maple Leafs versus New York Rangers Eastern Conference final.
So then
it could happen sooner, but that is also a possibility too. So just something just to keep in mind. I
didn't know that they're your New York Yankees, Joe. I'm learning things. Okay.
He owns them. He's the owner.
Yeah.
Check the Wikipedia page.
Well, I'm born on the 4th of July, so I do share a birthday with George Steinbrenner, who was also born on the 4th of July. So yes, I claim the Yankees.
Look at you. Oh, all right. Well, I'm going to put this out there right now. The Blue Jays are looking amazing. Yeah. I know we don't get started until one day after you guys. We go April 8th against the Rangers. I think you guys go on the 7th, your opening game. But Jays are looking good. We got some great players. You know, I might have to put a little bit of money down on the Jays this year to win it all. I don't know. Great value on the Blue Jays right now.
Smart bet, that's for sure. I think that's the way to go about it. I'm a Mets fan, but I definitely support any team that plays the Yankees. So definitely on the Blue Jays this year, that's for sure.
Not just plays them, Nick, but beats up on them, right?
Absolutely. I mean, no doubt about that. For you though, when you're growing up, Rick, I mean, obviously you're very established in the business now, but was there a particular broadcaster or a radio personality that really caught your interest? You called them your favorite and they kind of made you say, maybe this is something I could pursue in the future?
Well, you're right, Nick. My interests when I was growing up as a kid were sports and music, of course, entertainment with movies and TV. I just couldn't get enough of those things. So yeah, I would always watch what the pros were doing. I was passionate about sports and sports commentators, sports broadcasters. I was passionate about what the video jockeys, the VJs were doing on MuchMusic. We didn't get MTV up here. We got MuchMusic. And I was always into the actors and what they were doing, whether it was on small screen or the big screen. But yeah, there's a long list of people that have inspired me, that have motivated me. I was going to be a teacher. I went to university. I studied physical education, and I was going to follow in the footsteps of my 3 older siblings who are teachers. We're all in education up here. So I won a contest. I won a contest at MuchMusic that changed my career path, I guess you could say. It introduced me to the magical world of television, and I just ran with it. I ran with it like Earl Campbell ran with that football back in the day with the Houston Oilers. I didn't look back. Happy belated to Earl. I think he just celebrated a birthday yesterday or the day before. But yeah, man, there were those who I looked up to for sure. But it's a long list, and I can't go over everyone right now. But mostly the VJs that were on MuchMusic at the time, they sort of inspired me, and I looked up to them. Sure, I was into the music video back in the day, but I was more interested to see what the actual person was doing, how they introduced the videos, how they interacted with the bands that came to town. And that was me probably in the early 80s. Yeah, I was a kid in the early 80s, and music and sports was my life.
You attended Brock University and you studied physical education, which is...
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask in particular, did you do anything on campus related to taking like broadcasting classes, or did you have any internship opportunities that kind of deviated from what you were studying? Because again, getting from physical education degree to working in the media world now, granted, you do love sports, so they do go hand in hand, but I was just curious about what was the moment in particular, and if it happened when you were at school.
Yeah, Joe, and Nick, it's funny, I get these questions a lot. I have absolutely zero background in broadcast, either radio or television. I was a sports head, a music junkie. Those were my loves. Of course, entertainment as well, like I talked about earlier. But no, I was taking all, movement education, physical education, kinesiology, all these types of courses, and it wasn't even a thought in my mind to get into broadcasting. Until I won that contest, until I won the contest that actually put my body in a TV studio. I guess we don't call it a studio. We never called MuchMusic a studio. We called it an environment where we made television revolving around music. But I was put into that environment, that atmosphere, and I knew then and there that I wanted to do this for a living. And at first, you're not comfortable with the surroundings. You got these cameras in your face, and no experience, no classes, no studies in terms of broadcasting. But you grow to learn on the spot, on the job, day after day. And I had all these people around me that were working. It was a family. They knew what they're doing. They knew exactly what they're doing because they came from the background at college and university. But throwing me into the mix, I knew my music. I knew that like it was nobody's business back in the day. I knew everything about every band, and I'm getting older now, so my thumb isn't as much on the pulse with the young artists, this generation's artists. But back then, I knew my stuff. So you put my knowledge with the expertise of the people making television, and it was a perfect fit. It was a perfect fit. Yeah. So no experience at all, but it just worked out.
You were with MuchMusic as a VJ for 11 years, 94 to 05. Yeah. And you started basically right out of university. So tell us exactly what the contest process was like, how you got chosen, then ultimately how you ended up turning that into a long-term, full-time position.
Yeah, man, you guys do your research. You know a lot. But yeah,
you know it. It's in the name.
You guys know your stuff. I had entered the contest the year before because it started in 1993. You guys weren't even a thought.
We were born. We were born back then.
We were babies. You're a year old. We're both born 92. Yeah.
Oh, come on.
1992. Okay. Yeah.
There you go. 90s. All right.
Honestly, though, Joe, Rick looks like he's probably like. If I looked at him, I think he's like mid 30s.
Yeah, absolutely. If we were to guess the age that you were born, I would probably say
like 86.
Yeah, I would say 85, 86. You look good for your age.
Bless you guys. That means a lot to me. But I know you know your stuff, and I know you know exactly when I was born, because that's how good you two are. But I was days away from being born in the 60s. Okay, the 1960s, that decade. Wow. Yeah, no, 70s. I'm a 70s baby, 1970. But the process was, sure, I entered the contest the year before in 1993, but I didn't really put much of an effort into it. So obviously they didn't even look at my entry. The next year, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go all out with my creation. It was a visual creation back then. We had 25 words to explain why we would be the perfect temp at MuchMusic for the summer. So I remember creating this huge banner. The box, it was shaped of an M because that was our logo at the time as well. Before we started getting sued by MTV, we shared the M logo, and before we went to the Atlas, the globe. But basically, you know, I just it was around final exam time at university, and I told my parents, I'm going to put my studies on hold, and I'm going to really concentrate on this entry because this is something that I really want to do and I really want to win. So yeah, the 25 words I had that I used at the time were words that were used on MuchMusic to describe their shows at the time. And it was just a clever way of linking all these words together that made sense to the brass that were obviously the judges, and they liked the entry. And the rest is history. Yeah, it wasn't like today. We didn't have these devices where you can just send in videos of yourself talking about why you wanted the gig. We had to come up with creative and very imaginative ways of explaining and trying to describe our personalities. And, you know, thank God they liked my entry. It stood out, and I got introduced and hired that summer, summer of '94.
Summer of '94 was a great summer here in New York. Just wanted to throw that in there. Rick, I have to ask you, which group is your favorite? Who's your favorite band?
I got to interview so many amazing bands, Joe, at MuchMusic while I was there. I was not only a fan of theirs, but I respected, almost every band and artist that I interviewed, because to do what they do, especially back then, it's not like today. Bands and artists record songs, they put them up on YouTube or whatever, and they've got that medium to get out there to the world. So getting back to the question, I've got a long list of favorites, from Foo Fighters to the Stone Temple Pilots to the Chili Peppers.
Oh, you're gonna love me.
That's all Joe's favorites.
That's all your stuff right there, man.
Well, my favorite band is the Foo Fighters, and I'm still very distraught. I know. It's still can't believe very heartbreaking, and I got to see them a couple of times live, but the most two notable times I saw them, I saw them at an MSG show in 2011 after Wasting Light came out, and their special guest that night was Joan Jett. So played the hits, Bad Reputation, and then I got to see them on the boardwalk in Asbury Park for the final, which was allegedly the final Bamboozle Festival, and Bon Jovi played that Sunday, Foo Fighters played that Saturday, so it was just really, really great experience. But yeah, I mean, I love all those bands. My cousin's favorite band is the Chili Peppers. My best friends, they love Pearl Jam. I do love Stone Temple Pilots too. So we're like obviously 90s babies, so like the 90s rock.
Well, you talk about a band like Foo Fighters, and they're not just absolutely talented, phenomenal musicians, but as people, as humans, these guys were like your best friend. When you interviewed them, they remembered your name. They joked around with you like you were buddies for years. Dave, Taylor, all the guys in the band, that's how they made you feel. So that made you love them even more. You know what I'm saying? Like, the first time I met Taylor, he was drumming for Alanis Morissette, and this was 95. I hadn't actually started on air yet. I was still a temp. I'd won the contest the summer before. Alanis came through promoting her Jagged Little Pill album, and on drums is this character that looked like Animal from the Muppets, and he was just rocking out on this drum set. And it's like, this kid is going to be, well, first of all, he is amazing. He's gonna blow up one day. And a few years later, leaves Alanis, joins up with Dave and the Foo Fighters, and it's just, I still don't believe that Taylor's no longer with us. I interviewed the guys, a handful of times, and like I said earlier, every time, it's only Taylor I remember doing this. Not many. Like, every time I stepped into a room to interview these guys, Taylor would say, "Here comes Campanelli." Like, he would remember not just the first name, but my last name. And it's like, that's a special person, man. That's a special person. And it's heartbreaking when someone leaves this earth, and it's at such a young age, like Taylor's. Doesn't make sense to me. It's not fair. It's not supposed to happen that way. But God has a plan. God has a plan for all of us, and obviously Taylor was needed up in heaven to take care of Jimi Hendrix and Kurt up there, and they must be misbehaving up there. I don't know. Maybe Taylor was sent to take care of things up there. But
you mentioned Kurt, and my friends and I were talking about this the other day. The symmetry of Dave Grohl's career is unbelievable, because he rises to fame in Nirvana, right? He's their drummer, right? And then he loses Kurt Cobain, right? He loses his lead singer. So what does he do? He branches out on his own. He records the first Foos record totally on his own, right? And then he brings everybody on later, becomes the lead singer of the band, right? Taylor comes in, that's his drummer, and now he loses Taylor. So had it from both perspectives, you know what I mean? And it's like there's really odd symmetry there. And I mean, that dude's soul must been stretched beyond imagination.
No doubt about it.
But
no doubt about it. And it's no wonder
you're fortunate to get the opportunity to interview all these guys and even more bands, obviously.
very talented human beings right there. And it's no wonder, Dave, being best friends with Taylor, and you saw it. They were inseparable, those two. They did everything together, everything. And it's no wonder why, Dave and the Foos decided, we can't go on right now. The tour has been canceled, as you may know. And I'm getting goosebumps, Joe and Nick, just talking about this, because like I said earlier, it's just not supposed to happen this way, but you never know what life is. You never know what tomorrow brings, it could be very, very good up here. It could be very, very bad down here. So that's life, but still very sad.
Yeah, I know. Joe was very happy to see them, the VMAs this past summer, basically their last big thing. And really, you were in the middle of all that. So nothing like that, the late 90s, early 2000s music scene. I mean, that was basically the height of everything with VJs and whatnot. And
Nick, and it was the genre that we were into, the alt rock, that whole grunge movement coming out of Seattle. Like, I was a super fan in the 80s, early 90s, and to see this explosion, and then mid 90s being one of the guys to interview these bands. It was a surreal sort of step forward for me in life, in my career. But yeah, like I said, I'm a huge fan, and it was a total honor to be able to interview these bands and these people. And we just talked about that one genre, but there were so many genres at MuchMusic. We did like MTV. We played all genres, like the rock and the hip hop and the rap and the pop and everything. We had all the bands come through, and we talked to all the bands. And it was a magical time back then. It really was.
So MuchMusic, you're enjoying life, and then
the
iconic jingle, Entertainment Tonight. I would assume you have the same jingle out there. It's just so iconic. Exact. I'll do it again. Get really close to the mic here. Nailed it. Nailed it. So I want to know, how did that opportunity come about for you? Because that's big time right there.
That's big time. It was big time. I started having babies, and VJs can't have babies. VJs can't have babies. VJs got to move on once they start having a family, because the young people are the VJs. I had my first child, and I knew, things were changing. It wasn't the same place that I had entered 11 years prior. We at one time we were able to hold the reins and do what we wanted with the reins. You want to go left, go left. You want to go far right, let's go way over there. But we had more eyes on us and more hands pointing us in the direction that we should be going in. And creative control, it's, as you guys know, it's a beautiful thing when you have it, and when you're able to do what you want with your own ideas. That was becoming minimized, and we were losing that. And then, quite frankly, you start playing pop culture reality shows, and that's not what I signed up for. I signed up for, music nonstop, bands coming in, playing music videos. So that started changing. So I needed to change. I needed to move on and go on to my next chapter and open my next door. And the summer of 2005, a big entertainment franchise was coming up to Canada, and the executive producers took me out, and I remember the first things they said. They say, we like how you operate on a red carpet, and would you like to do the same for our show? We can't tell you the name of the show right now, but we can tell you it's a pretty big entertainment show. So then we found out it was the granddaddy of all the entertainment shows. Mary Hart, started years and years and years ago in the States. I was over the moon, man, to be introduced into that family, into that franchise. It was from MuchMusic to Entertainment Tonight. It was like, wow, it was a pinching me moment for sure.
You certainly have the hair for the red carpet.
I don't know, man.
Probably very easily to style, right?
I just had a photo shoot for the radio station earlier, so I guess the hair still looks the same from the photo shoot.
Those Italian jeans.
Yeah, that's right. Italians do have great hair.
I can't do the facial hair though, Joe. I can't do the facial hair. Yeah.
Me neither.
Yeah, there you go, Nick. Yeah, I see a little bit down there though.
Yeah, it comes in as like peach fuzz for Nick. So at the top, I mentioned Elvis Duran. So you are currently the co-host of the morning show, like I said, in Toronto. How did that opportunity come about for you?
Yeah, man. When I left ET Canada in 2017, when that came to an end, and who knew I was going to spend more of my years at an entertainment show than I did at a music station, but that's the way it happened. But yeah, I took some time off. I have 3 boys and 2 very young boys. So it gave me the opportunity to be a full-time dad and a full-time husband and raise my boys with my wife. So that was all fine and dandy for a good few years until last summer. And I always told my wife, like, okay, I'm at home now. I'm with you. I'm with the family. It's a good thing. But I'm going to get back out there into a full-time gig one of these days when our boys are all at school, and they are all at school. My youngest is now in kindergarten. So yeah, I was doing this cross Canada tour last summer. It was called the 90s Nostalgia Tour. We brought Aqua, Ace of Base, Venga Boys, a bunch of artists across the country, from Vancouver out to St. John's, Newfoundland. And I think this radio station, they play a lot of the 90s. We have this Way Back Wake Up Hour where we go way back and we'll play all these artists. Yeah, 2 Unlimited was there as well. So they had me in to do a little interview on how the tour was going. And I guess they just saw that, I knew my place in a studio behind a microphone, and I hit it off with one of their DJs at the time. And the next thing you know, they're offering me a morning radio gig. And you can't say no to a morning radio. Like I love it. I get to bed early because I have a young family, and I'm up early at 3:30 in the morning, and we're on the radio at 6 a.m. And it's one of my favorite gigs, guys. We've been talking about a few of them that anyone would be fortunate to have, but something about radio that brings me back to MuchMusic. First of all, it's live, it's music, and we got a lot of band buddies that will call in and we'll catch up. And yeah, there's just something about it. It's only been 5 months, but I'm absolutely loving it. I haven't slept in a day yet. Knock on wood.
Getting up at 3:30 is absolutely brutal. I know that's when Joe usually gets in bed at 3:30. It's very tough. So I'm curious, what's your schedule here? Because if I get up that early, and I've had to in the past because I had to work at 6 a.m. sometimes at radio stations with interning. I can't eat. I'm not hungry. But I know other people, like, by 6 o'clock in the morning, they're eating like Chinese food, pizza, hamburgers. Like, what is your eating schedule throughout the day?
Because that's our lunchtime at that point, right? Well, Nick, let me go back and say, as the big sports fan like I am, like you guys, I can't watch any sports at night anymore. Okay, so thank God baseball has started. Even I'm watching spring training before I linked in with you guys. I'm watching the games because they start at 1 o'clock. So thank God for that. And baseball starts early, so that's good. I can at least watch baseball. But with hockey and basketball, especially when our Raptors are on the West Coast, 10 p.m. starts, I can't watch those games. I can't watch it. The one game I did stay up for, the 10 p.m. When Canada was down in Costa Rica. Costa Rica. They needed that game to qualify. They lost that game, but I stayed up to watch that game. I was an all-nighter, basically. But you're right. At 3:30 when I'm up, I'm straight to the espresso maker. I got my double espresso going is the first thing. I'll have some fruit. I make my breakfasts throughout the week, my little egg bites. I'll bring them into work. And you're right. At 6 o'clock when we're going on to start our live show, that's lunchtime for me. So I eat that. After the show today, for a prime example, I went out at like 10:30 and it was basically like eating dinner already. I had a steak. Everything's all messed up, my schedule. So yeah, but I love food. I'm Italian. What's wrong with a little steak and a little red wine in the morning at 10:30, right?
I mean,
a little red wine every day. It's good for the heart.
That's right.
That's what they say.
I recently went to Las Vegas with my wife, and we were going to the buffets, the breakfast buffets. I'm eating prime rib at 8 o'clock in the morning. So there's nothing wrong with that at all, because
Nick, if they're serving it, we're eating it, right?
I'd rather have like lunch and dinner food than breakfast food anyway. Yeah. So I'm with you on that.
I agree.
Obviously, you've done so many great interviews over the years. won't ask you to give me a favorite. It's too tough for you, but tell me one or two that is just very memorable. Maybe it went off the rails, or maybe it's because the person was maybe nicer than you thought they would be.
You know what? I cherish all my memories. Even if they're not A-list artists or actors, I cherish every moment I get with a band, with an artist, with an actor, with an actress, with an athlete. I really do. Because I'm so fortunate, man. You guys, I'm sure you understand, like, to be given the chance, the opportunity to do this, like it's a dream job. It's a dream job. So I've had a few ones that stick out. I've interviewed, and listen, now I'm going to go back to when, now I know for a fact you weren't born yet. If you're saying early 90s, I used to watch a show called Welcome Back, Kotter. It aired in the 70s, in syndication in the 80s. John Travolta was the main star. He played Vinnie Barbarino. I don't know if you remember, maybe you'll Google it later, but I got a chance to interview John Travolta a couple times.
Wow, John Travolta, Rick. I mean, that's tremendous.
Yeah, John Travolta definitely at the top of the list. You know, as a kid watching this guy on Welcome Back, Kotter, and another actor that really stands out. And I'm going back now. I'm going back years because that's when I first fell in love with the whole, TV, the movie, the music. So yeah, Tom Hanks is definitely on that list of standout people. The guy is a crazy talented actor, but also a really humble, compassionate, nice guy. And we constantly hear what Tom Hanks is doing. Like, just like last week, didn't he pose with a bride and a groom in, I think it was Pittsburgh. I've seen him do it and heard of him do it in Central Park when he's out on jogs. He'll just pose with people. That's just the kind of guy he is. And then last on that list of actors, it has to be Henry Winkler, the Fonz from Happy Days. That guy is one of the nicest actors you'll ever meet. And you think about the character that put him on the map, Arthur Fonzarelli, another old show. I'm sorry, I'm showing my age.
We know
we used to watch Happy Days on Nick at Night.
Iconic.
There you go. Okay, good. So all these three guys that I've just mentioned, especially the latter two, like, they're just humble, everyday guys. You would never think that Tom Hanks won a bunch of Oscar or Academy Awards, and John Travolta, has achieved the fame he has, and Henry Winkler. They're just normal guys to me.
Yeah.
And so that's the actors that stand out. But the bands, like I was saying earlier to you and Joe, Nick, it's like, yeah, the Chili Peppers and Pearl Jam and the Foo Fighters and all of these bands, I'm not only a big fan of, but to be able to spend time with them and interview them and hang with them. And then the whole pop movement came into play late 90s, early aughts, I guess. And then you become friends with the guys in NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys and the Britneys and the Christinas. And to be part of that world, it's like, sure, I'm not into that genre of music, but these people are making so many people around the world happy. So to be the guy that interviewed them when they came through MuchMusic, I was honored. So yeah, there's a ton of
lot of people
interviews along the way that are standouts, but we can't talk about them all.
Right. So give me someone who you have never interviewed that you'd love to interview.
Well, a lot of them are no longer with us. Prince was one of my favorite all-time artists. I got to see Prince so many times. One of those times was down in South Beach when he performed at the halftime show at the Super Bowl there, in the rain, singing Purple Rain. But Prince, oh man, he had a place in Toronto for years, the same street that Drake lives on now, on the Bridle Path. Never met him, never interviewed him, saw him in concert a ton of times, but that is one person that I always wanted to interview. Gosh, Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci is someone that I love. I love his movies. I love him as an actor. I've always wanted to interview him, maybe one day, with fingers crossed. I interviewed De Niro and a bunch of those other artists that have been in those mob movies. Gosh, who else? Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey,
Legend.
Canadian Jim Carrey, the legend. He went to school. I could look at his school from here. It's in the same neighborhood as where I'm living now, in Aldershot. But Jim Carrey, he's one of those actors I've always wanted to interview, and we've never, it was never me that was given that assignment to interview him. And of course, the late great Robin Williams. Robin Williams, another guy that was on Mork and Mindy when I was a kid. That guy impacted me so much with what he did, his talents, his comedy. But our paths never crossed, and I never got a chance to interview him. It's too late now for some, but some are still on my bucket list to interview, and you never know, maybe one day.
Yeah, I think when the celebrity deaths kind of hit, I think a lot of people have differing opinions, because when you're famous, not that there's envy there, but people don't really care for the celeb stuff. But I remember when Robin Williams died, that was like the first celeb death that I think really, really hit me hard. And I just think it's the circumstantial everything behind all that. But all those are great answers, great comedic actors. I was hoping you were going to say James Gandolfini. I don't know if
James Gandolfini. Oh man, James Gandolfini. Yeah. I never got a chance to interview James Gandolfini. What an actor he was. What a presence he was. This larger than life character on The Sopranos, and just a big teddy bear in real life is what I've heard. But the ultimate actor's actor right there. Took every role serious. I saw him in many different roles throughout his career, but sure, we can't, at the top's got to be Tony Soprano. And the way he took that character, and it was so believable, Joe. It was so, you'd think if you ran into James Gandolfini on the street, it'd be Tony Soprano. But no, this is just, it's fiction. It's just a character he plays, But I never got to interview him. Now, maybe Michael, his son, one day, hopefully. I reach out to Michael on Instagram here and there, and sometimes he replies, but James, had you met him before he passed?
No, I did not, unfortunately, but we are huge Sopranos fans from this neck of the woods. So I had to ask.
I gotta get your thoughts on Many Saints of Newark.
I thought it was really good. I thought it's very good watch. You could rewatch it, but I don't think it's like something that you could rewatch over and over again. And I think it would have been better as a TV series, like a 5 or 6 episode TV series.
And not enough, you don't see you see Carmela at the end for a second. You don't have her and Tony met. So a lot of missing pieces there, but I think that was maybe intentional to set up perhaps a HBO Max television series, which I think will ultimately come.
Yeah, that's what Nick and I agree on. And
I do remember meeting up with the guys on an Emmy red carpet. The cast of The Sopranos was there. Obviously, James wasn't there that day, but I think Imperioli was there, and a couple of the other actors, not the bigger ones, but the other cast members. And we always talked about, and Sopranos had come to an end already, but they were still going to the events, and of course they were welcome anywhere. Because that show did amazingly well throughout the years. But we always ask, is there a movie coming? What's going to be next? Okay, so we know the ending from the last episode, but is there a chance? They snuck out the back. Is there a chance? We could see something else, a next season, but they never alluded to anything, and that was years ago. So. No, that's one of those series that you watch, and you get you're addicted from episode 1, season 1, and it's something I tell you, my wife and I watched it as it aired, and we kept watching it. We got the DVD set, and we kept watching it. And we still say to this day, we got to go through the whole series again from start to finish, because that was one TV series that. Top 3 of all time, top 3 TV series of all time. I could put Cheers up there as well for sure, but Sopranos, man, there'll never be anything else like that. They're not even close.
Nope. And Tony is one of the most iconic characters ever.
Yeah.
Obviously, gave
Yeah.
birth to a lot of other characters
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
loved on TV. So we're talking about the dichotomy between film stars and TV stars. So I wanted to ask you personally, because you've had experience doing both. Have you noticed differences when you were doing TV jobs as opposed to radio jobs? You know, what do you think are the biggest differences in terms of skill set and what you need to do between the both of them?
You mean my job as the interviewer preparing?
Yeah, are there any differences between doing stuff for TV and radio?
Yeah.
Any major differences, or
Oh,
do you
I
feel
see
like
what you're
everything
saying.
kind of blends in together now?
Yeah, it really does. You know, if you're interviewing someone, you're taking it, it's the same exact process, preparation and approach as it should be for anything. You know, you want to learn as much as you can about the subject, the person. It's like I called it doing my homework. I didn't like doing the homework back in high school, but I love doing homework these days because I get to learn about the artist that I'm about to interview, or the athlete or the actor. So, and I love finding out about people. I love finding out everything there is to find out about this person. And you want to know that stuff too, because sure, sometimes it's only a 4-minute interview when it comes to junkets with actors, because you're in the hotel room with that they're sitting in and you're out. Yeah. But you want to know as much as you can about that person, because if the conversation goes in this direction on a tangent this way, and they're saying something that not a lot of people can follow with, but if you know that person, if you know their history, well, you can follow that conversation or that thought that they have. So yeah, I prepare myself to the extremes when it comes to learning about people and knowing as much as I can about them, whether it's TV, radio, whatever it is. They're all the same to me, and it's all the same approach. And now that I've been doing it since like the mid 90s, you sort of become friends with a lot of these people, and you have a connection with a lot of these people, and you build up these relationships, and you talk to a person the second time and the third time and the fourth time. It just becomes like you know, your friend that you're interviewing. It breaks down a lot of barriers. It makes them a lot more comfortable. And yeah, it's you know, that's the one thing I love about this job that I'm still doing on radio these days. Like I still try to bring on as many guests as possible. And since I made these relationship back in the day, it's kind of cool to just reach out to somebody and say, you know, can you spare like 10, 15 minutes and get a quick interview, see what you're doing, what the latest is. And that's the coolest part about it all. I could never do that back in the mid 90s because I didn't know anybody. I was so fresh and young and new, and nobody wanted to talk to me, but you got to put your time in, right?
Absolutely. And something that Nick and I always like to ask, and your path was slightly unconventional, but you've reached the point where you have now. So we wanted to ask specifically representation and the agent question. Do you currently have representation?
Yeah.
You have an agent?
I don't think I've ever been asked this question during a podcast. I do.
Now, did that happen early in your career, or did it happen later in your career?
Well, you know what? This is funny. The first person that represented me was from Manhattan.
Wow.
His name is Eric, and he was good friends and kind of like a pseudo manager for the Backstreet Boys. So for Nick and AJ and Howie and all the guys. So I would interview the Backstreet Boys, like it felt like almost every other month. so I became friends with Eric, and Eric said, do you have representation up in Canada? And I said, representation? What does that even mean? Like, no, we don't do that up here. He says, I'd like to represent you and work on deals for you. And so Eric started doing my deals at MuchMusic. And I'm talking like late 90s, early aughts. Eric from New York. These days, and his roster was getting bigger and bigger, you know, based out of Manhattan. And I thought, I'm just this Canadian kid, you know, he doesn't want me on his roster anymore. So we parted ways. No, it was all amicable and it was all friendly. But now I'm with a pretty big agency in Toronto, the Spotlight Agency, and they work with a lot of great people. And as you can understand, social media, brand partnership, aligning yourself with the brand, it's big business. And they get a ton of work for my wife and I. My wife actually teaches social media marketing at the local college here. So it's funny how TV sort of dropped for me personally by the wayside, but this whole world of social media it's even bigger in a way, these days, because TV, that whole horizon, that whole landscape, the TV landscape, it's I don't know, it's got legs still, but it's not the future, that's for sure, right?
Yeah, social media. I just looked this up. My phone's falling up here, getting these social media notifications. It's insane. So for you, Rick, I want to know, what is in your career, your I'm right moment. So what I mean by that is a time where you decided you want to do something, you ask somebody for advice, and they say, I don't think you should do that. That's going to be bad. And you say, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. And ultimately you will see why it is that I'm right.
Wow. Yeah, Nick, I've always loved doing things the way I thought was fit for any job that I've held, never crossing the lines with things, not offending anyone, but I just think, because I've been a big fan and I've been in the shoes of the viewers and those people. I know it's a totally different time, but I've been there on the other end, and I knew exactly what I wanted, and we're basically all the same if you think about it. We're all kind of voyeurs, and we want to dive into that fantasy world. So yeah, I always came up with a lot of ideas. I would run them by my superiors. Sure, a lot would get shut down, but at least I went there with my ideas. And then when I became a personality that had a bit more say in things, and then I got to do the things that I wanted to do and how I wanted to do them. But back in the day, when I had people of a certain stature come to me and say, well, let's try it this way, I listened to them because they had been in that position for years. Obviously, they're in that position because they know what they're doing. So to not take their advice and to not listen to them would have been a big mistake. I try to give advice to the generations that are coming up now that want to get into the business that I was in, and I'll give them the time of day that they need, because I wish I had someone back then that guided me along. And it's so everybody can do it, and who wants to do it, and why not? More power to them. So I think advice is a very strong tool when it comes from anybody. Of course, I try to help people out with their careers these days, and if they want to listen to me, I'm straightforward. I tell them what, how to be, what not to do at first. You got to be yourself, as you guys know. But advice is a very important thing in this world. Yeah, you got to listen to it. My dad has the best advice. My dad always said to me growing up, the mountain isn't going to move to you. You got to approach and move to the mountain. Meaning, if you have a goal or a dream, you got to chase it. You got to go after it. You don't wait for it to fall on your lap. You got to make things happen and work for yourself in life. You guys know that one. That's the corny one.
We've heard most cliches. It's okay.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Though, that one.
It's true. And you came to the right podcast for that. So Rick, thank you for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. A couple of hiccups along the way, but everything will be sorted out in time. Don't worry about
the magic
that.
of editing. Yeah.
Magic of editing, the magic of live TV. It's brilliant. We wish you the best. We wish you guys and your family the best. The sweatshirt you could work on a little bit. Maybe I'll get you a Rangers sweatshirt, but hopefully Nick and I one day we come up north of the border and we can come to Toronto and hang out, or the next time you're in New York, we would love to hang out. We'll show you the best pizza places in and around Manhattan. Manhattan itself is not the best place for pizza. You got to go to the outer boroughs for the better pizza.
That's what I hear. My wife tried bringing me to the best pizza place because she did work in New York for a while. She did like an internship down there with one of those shows, Dateline or 48 Hours. I forget which one. And she swears she takes me to the best pizza place every time. It's pretty good. Don't get me wrong.
Oh boy.
But she was just a visitor in your city for those months. You guys, I can't wait to come down and try the real pizza of New York. So I'm going to hold you to that. And again, vice versa. When you guys come up here, we'll take you to the Blue Jays, the Maple Leafs, the TFC games. Are you into CFL? Are you into the Canadian football? We'll go see an Argo game.
Football is football, isn't it?
It's different up here.
I mean, it's different in Europe
You got
and
the
the rest of the
all-time,
world. But
you got the all-time CFL great, The Rock. I mean, he started the CFL, so
Yeah.
a lot of legends there. Doug Flutie, Kurt Warner.
Warren
Flutie,
Moon, yeah.
Hey, Nick knows. That's right. That's right. We have more players on the field and we have bigger balls. It's a fact.
Yeah.
12 on
Yeah, so we'll have-
12. Wider,
There you
the
go.
field's wider too. So
More running. There's a lot more running, Nick. Yeah, a lot more running. If you're
Yes,
into that.
we'll have a great time. But what we do here is we always give our guests the last word. So we know there's a bunch for you to share or promote. So if there's anything else you would like to share or promote, please go right ahead. And once again, we wish you the best. We wish your family the best. And hopefully we get together in person one day. I think that would be a lot of fun.
I would love that, Nick and Joe. I would love that. You guys, listen, I've done a few of these podcasts along the way, especially during the pandemic. And this has been one of the more enjoyable ones. I love chatting. I love conversation. I'm not going to promote or share anything. I just wanted to say, you guys keep up the great work because you guys are doing something great with what you have, and you're amazing at what you do. So congratulations to you guys in this podcast, and thank you for having me on with you today.
all right, Rick, we really appreciate it. So that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right. So for our very special guest who just had some really kind words, Rick Campanelli, and for my co-host Joe Calabrese, I'm Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.